For those that are new, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications to be notified whenever a brand new video is posted onto this channel. Thank you all so much for your continued support. Now let's begin. Ladies and gentlemen, the brand new Megalodon 2018 trailer has now officially been released, starring Jason Statham, and on this video here today, we're going to be breaking down and reviewing the newest trailer to Meg, set to premiere this upcoming summer. So without wasting any more time, let us go on ahead and go into both the pros and the cons in this brand new trailer. Now, as you guys can see, Mano 1 research station 200 miles off of the Chinese coast. Now, this movie's supposed to have somewhat of a premise of Jason Statham remembering this animal, remembering this shark. Now, as you guys can see, we have, from what it looks like, a research center of some sorts right in the middle of the ocean, and we get to see how down in the depths below, it looks like we also have, you know, sperm whales, blue whales, all floating about. Now, we get to see the sheer size of these whales in comparison to what we're about to see. Now, this research station goes, you know, far and beyond into the depths of the ocean. Now, what's really remarkable about here is we see this little girl, and she seems to be following this spherical object that seems to be guiding her. Now, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the following, but we get to see how this girl is walking, how all of a sudden she stumbles upon, from what it looks like, a backpack, some ropes. Not really too sure as to what's going on here, until of course we get to see how this little girl is about to go on ahead and find out what she's looking at down below. But then out behind her, we get to see something ominous just lurking in the background. Now, as you guys can see, just a little bit behind her, we see this shadowy figure begin to emerge, and of course it is the Megalodon. Now, in case you guys don't know, a shark that big once existed, and we don't know the sheer size as to how big they could have gotten, but this animal looks massive. So as the trailer cuts and we come back to our horror, this little girl seems to spot something staring at her at the glass. Now, of course, she ends up dropping this object, and the first thing we get to see over here is, of course, the shark. We get to see the Megalodon. Now, I'm not entirely sure if sharks can actually do this and just, you know, ominously just stare at you from like the other side. I don't know if that's realistic per se, but it's pretty terrifying to stare out in the distance and see this massive shark just looking back at you. So you can see right here the sheer size comparison from this little girl compared to Meg. Now, what's most interesting about this is the shark, once it spots the little girl, it opens its mouth and it begins to latch onto the glass. Now, of course, the shark does not break through the glass, which is kind of weird because the bite force of this animal has to be the highest ever in history compared to a T-Rex, a Spinosaurus, a whale, any sort of other, you know, prehistoric shark. So this thing has to have a huge bite force. But as we continue on here, we get to see how Jason Statham is alerted. Everyone at the station seems to have felt this vibration. Now, the sheer bite of this animal caused everybody to go downstairs and trying to figure out what's happening. And I mean, to my surprise, I'm really shocked that this establishment isn't destroyed based on the sheer bite alone. But we get to see here how once Jason Statham and everyone spot the little girl, they're trying to investigate as to what the heck happened, and he looks out and he notices, as the girl's talking about how there's a monster in the water, we get to see how Jason spots these massive, you know, teeth-like marks on the window. So he automatically already knows what's going on because actually he cries out and saying it's Megalodon. He knows because he came across this shark before. So as we continue, Warner Brothers Pictures, and we begin to descend down into the ocean. Now, the premise of this film is the Chinese research center is actually in trouble because their submersible gets trapped underwater. Now, we get to see these fish and, I mean, really prehistoric like animals. I mean, animals that we haven't seen before. And Jason seems to be the one diving into the depths and trying to figure out what's going on down there. Now, the rest of the crew are trying to figure out, you know, if it's a shark, what kind of a shark it is. And here we get to see that, of course, it is a Megalodon based on what they saw at the research center, the teeth marks, and assumingly they might come across a tooth or two. And that's when we go down deeper into the ocean and we come across something very interesting. Now, as the crew members and everyone are talking about, you know, this prehistoric shark and what it could be, we go down into the depths of the ocean, and that's where things begin to get And that's when things begin to get very interesting. Now, down below, we see how one of the research members actually gets latched on by, from what it looks like, a massive squid, perhaps maybe a giant squid of some sorts, because it wraps itself around the pod. Now, there's a pressure warning here, but most interesting about all of this is, as you can see, this massive squid just latch on to the pod. Something happens in the middle of this that really grabbed my attention. Now, we get to see how all of a sudden, this thing begins to let out ink. And the woman is trying to figure out as to what exactly is happening, and then all of a sudden, to her horror, this shark has the squid in its mouth. Now, of course, this squid is no ordinary squid. It is a massive squid, as you guys can see in comparison to the Megalodon's mouth. But I do have a problem about the Megalodon that I will address in this trailer. Now, as we see the shark just looming above her head, everyone, including Jason Statham, points out that in fact it is Megalodon. So with that being said, everyone seems to be a bit skeptical as to what the heck is happening as we begin to learn more about the Megalodon as the trailer continues. Now, it goes on to state this summer. Now, here's what really grabbed my attention per se, is we see this little dog, it jumps in the water, everyone's in the water, everyone's jumping in the water, not knowing what's out there, and then all of a sudden, we see how this little dog seems to spot out in the distance this massive, massive animal just splashing around. Now, if this doesn't give you a Jaws-like, you know, feel, then I don't know what does, because this reminds me personally of the classic Jaws. Now, this poor little dog begins to turn around and swimming back. Now, of course, there are, now, as you guys can see, the shark in all its glory. Now, I don't know in terms of size how it's going to be in comparison to boats, so size to boat ratio, but it does look pretty big. Now, the premise of this are lots of people are apparently going to be jumping in the water and having themselves a good time, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about here. Now, as you can see, there are possibly thousands upon thousands of people in the water, you know, unknowing of what's lurking out there. As we get to see here, the shark begins to approach shallow water. And with that being said, we can make the comparison to this little raft here, you know, right next to the Megalodon's fin, let alone his body. Now, the one thing I will say is that this shark, to me, looks very fat in comparison to what I expected from the shark. I expected the shark to be a lot longer instead of it being so girthy. Now, as you guys can see here, the shark begins to swim on by, and people begin to take notice of this, and out of the blue, we see how this shark emerges from the water, and in what is a very interesting and very awesome shot, this Megalodon, you know, you can tell based on its jaw size alone, is about to swallow this guy whole. It comes up out of the water, and it just completely flips the boat. This definitely gives off the Jaws vibe, except on a much, you know, grander level in terms of comparison to size. So it says, chomp away. Now, the Megalodon's obviously swimming around, Jason Statham there with the gun, and I'm actually very curious as to how they're going to finish the shark off, if that's going to be the case. Now, Jason's down in the depths of the water, and people are beginning to speak about, you know, why Jason's so serious and why he has, like, this very, you know, serious demeanor about him. Obviously, he's met the shark before. That's why he's the way he is in this film. Now, chomp on this. And we get to see right here how the Megalodon is just swimming on by, knocking people over. Now, again, I don't know if you guys can tell or not, but this shark, to me, doesn't seem that big in this particular shot here. Now, I was expecting for the shark to just completely dwarf everybody and everything, which to an extent it is, because its fin alone is knocking everyone down. But this thing is going to have fun in the water because we see people down in the depths of the water struggling. Now, we see Jason here. He encounters the shark. The shark looks like it's about to swallow him whole, and people are panicking on the beach. Again, very Jaws-esque like. Now, unfortunately enough for this female, she's about to receive a very painful treatment by the Megalodon. As you guys can tell, the Megalodon looks like it caught her by the jaws. We see its jaws just sinking in this woman. So the Megalodon has reached shallow waters, and it's beginning to attack. Now, Jason obviously has a mission in stopping the Megalodon, but can it be stopped? Now, here we get to see it says Jason Statham. We see all the actors and actresses a part of the film, Ruby Rose, Cliff Curtis, and as we continue to progress on in the trailer, what I really enjoy about this is seeing how the Megalodon easily is going to be able to swallow its victims whole without any to little effort in doing so, as you guys can tell based on this one person. And as we progress in the trailer, we see how it looks like we have ourselves the Coast Guard per se. It looks like they're going to be attacking this thing with like machine guns, and this thing looks massive. and I'm not entirely sure as to how I feel about the shark being in the water next to the chopper like this. Hopefully enough, this shark doesn't end up taking the chopper down, but as we get to see here, explosions are happening. This shark is causing havoc everywhere, and it seems to be in pursuit of Jason, which this scene here reminds me so much of Deep Blue Sea. If you guys went back and saw that film, we see people just panicking everywhere, the Megalodon coming out, swallowing wholes, like just groups of people all at once, which I find to be very fascinating. So by the end of it, as the Megalodon begins to open up its mouth, we close the trailer off in saying the Meg. Now, this is what I really like, is like, this is what I expected the shark to be like this size. Like, as you guys can see the boat compared to the shark, you know, I was expecting to see this shark be much bigger, but the shark to me looks really, really fat in comparison. So this is going to be a movie to where I feel you guys definitely need to check out, because it looks like one of those movies to where it's filled with action, and it's going to have throwbacks to Deep Blue Sea and Jaws. Again, I don't know if I feel all too excited about the shark itself, because the shark to me looks very chunky instead of it being just massive in terms of size. Is it big? Absolutely, but I'm waiting to see what it's going to do on the big screen before I make any assessments or judgments. Now, again, I do believe that Jason is going to end up taking the shark down, and in the end, very Jaws-esque like perhaps, but in the end, guys, let me know as to what you guys thought about the trailer down below. What did you guys think about the way they're operating and using the technology and having to descend down into the depths of the ocean and trying to find out what's happening until, of course, we see the giant squid be overtaken by the Megalodon? What are your overall thoughts on this movie, guys? Post your comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for watching. If, of course, you guys are new to this channel, don't forget to go ahead and smash that subscribe button, guys. Tune back in for more. If, of course, you guys have not checked out my previous trailer breakdowns before, I will leave a link down below for you guys to go ahead and check out. Thank you all so much for watching, guys. Once again, tune back in for more, and I'll be seeing each and every single one of you guys down in the comment section below. Take it easy, guys. Peace!